Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. Again, we're so glad that you're with us on this Thursday. Hope that you are learning tons, and we're giving you lots of information because we are going to continue to fill your heads. If you are one of those people who have said, you know what, I'm going to stick my money underneath my mattress, and that's the safest place for it to be right now, after the stock market crash, after the recession that we've been dealing with, a lot of people have decided, you know what, I'll just invest myself and I'll just save it and I'll just stick it here and it won't earn anything. And we're finding out that's not the best way to go. Dave Young from Paragon Investments is with us this morning. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you getting up and coming in.
Sure, I'm glad to be here.
You know, I'll tell you what, our friend there on the couch next to you gave you a fantastic compliment, how much he trusts you and how much your clients trust you. And it's a huge issue right now, isn't it, when it comes to investing?
With investing, trust is everything, for sure.
Yeah, and I think we've heard about so many different things that have gone wrong with people that have invested, and it has nothing to do with anything more than they just invested with the wrong person, didn't they?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and you know, tell us a little bit. I know, Tim, you're very familiar with Dave, and you
I've
said
got good
you've
questions.
Had some great
I think I got to ask him. One of the things I got to just have him say on the air is, what do you tell people today? They're scared to death to invest. You know, their property's dropping, their stocks have dropped. What do you tell them at this point to get them to invest? I mean, a lot of people are just holding their money. They're getting nothing for it where it's setting.
Yeah, a lot of people are just sitting on their hands and have been for some time.
Right.
And I mean, investing is broken down fairly simple. You've got to buy when things are low, and you've got to sell when things are high. And when we're in a fear environment where people are scared to death, that's when things are low. And that's really when people should be investing. That's when you're going to get the best returns.
So now, when you invest for their money, let's say they bring you $100,000, or maybe it's 10, whatever the amount. He does have, you know, he can't help everyone because they do have some minimums and maximums. But what do you tell them? Okay, I've got $100,000. I want you to invest it. Where are you going to put it for them right now?
It really depends on what the risk level is. And everyone's different.
Sure.
So your risk level might be a lot different than your risk level.
Right.
And so
I can guarantee you it is.
You might be surprised.
Do you know what I mean? Well, no, but I think that's one of the things, and that's one of the things we spoke about, is the fact that a lot of people don't feel like they can invest.
That's true.
They don't think they can do it. It's like, okay, so I am sitting on $10,000. I'll put it in a CD.
Yeah.
You know, I'll do something other than
I can cash it out real fast.
Right, or I'll do something other than call an investor to help me, or a financial planner to help me with this money and help me to develop a portfolio.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, though, right?
Well, and really one of the most important things that I think you can do in this environment is to find a good financial advisor to work with. You know, back in the 80s, you could just kind of show up, put your money in some certain stocks, and everything was going up.
Right.
But really, for the last 10 years, the markets have gone nowhere. I mean, there's been a lot of up, a lot of down, but when you look at the net returns on the stock market, it's been 0 to negative over the last 10 years.
Wow.
I didn't know it had been that long.
Yeah, so that is.
Well, let's say you have $10,000 and you want to take $5,000 of it and put it in risky things that maybe would have a much higher chance of increasing, and you want to take the other $5,000 and put it in very secure things. Can you give us some idea where you might go there right now, just to give people an idea how you work?
Yeah, as far as the types of things that are showing up on our list right now, everything we do is run with quantitative models, and those quantitative models tell us where to invest. What's showing up right now are Brazil, China.
They're stock markets.
They're stock markets.
Okay. Well, China's just booming still, I hear. Is that true?
China, the Pacific Rim. Those areas are all showing a lot of strength and a lot of momentum.
Even Japan has come out of their kind of low, and they're starting to move up again. Is that true?
They're just barely starting. And they've been stuck for
10 years.
At least 10 years, more like 20 years.
Wow.
Why so much activity in the international market versus the domestic market here?
Just those markets are growing and vibrant, and with the U.S. market, our market has always been the world leader. Right now, though, it seems like we're putting a lot of debt on our economy, and that debt is a huge drag. And so when you look at long-term trends and markets, yes, we're invested in the U.S. market in certain spots in the U.S. market, but in the big picture, the U.S. is more in a flat market, whereas those international ones are still growing and have a lot of room to run.
Wow, and I think that's probably very surprising for a lot of people, because we have, like you mentioned, the United States has always been the most prosperous when it comes, you would think, to those types of situations. Unfortunately, I guess with the crash of the stock markets, our recession, and as you mentioned, you know, money continually being thrown at issues that we don't have,
Right.
really does play a is a factor in what happens with the investing process.
Now, if
It's a big
Obama,
factor.
if he gives us extends the Bush tax breaks, maybe for 4 more years, if that happens, I know they're kind of softening up on some of the things they were not going to do, but if that happens, would that since they say that the big companies will invest more into their companies if that happens, do you think that will open up the investment portfolios for America much more than they are right now?
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that will play a factor.
yeah. Those tax cuts, if they were extended, all that really does is it just puts more money in companies' hands to work with, as opposed to taking it to the government and having the government work with it.
Right.
So as long as you can keep money in individuals and companies' hands, that
makes
becomes
sense.
more dynamic, and there's a multiplier effect there.
So let's say somebody comes to you and they say, I've got $100,000. It's all the money I have in the world. I'm paying on my home. I've got a good job. Seem to be secure. What would you suggest I do? Would you suggest I put $25,000 or $50,000 into a CD? And then would you suggest I invest on that 50-50 level like I was talking about, small risk, high risk? What would you tell the average person that's somewhat successful in these tough times?
Yeah, for the average, it's really impossible to say the average person, because we've
What's
got
average?
We've got
It's all relevant, isn't
Yeah,
it?
we've got several hundred clients, and every one of them's invested a little
Differently.
bit differently, and it just depends on what their goals are, what their objectives are, what their risk tolerance is. Once you put all that together, then you can put together a custom plan for that
And then
person.
you guys sit back down with them and say, this is what we'd suggest.
This is what we'd suggest, and then from there, then we actively manage that portfolio.
I see.
We don't just do a buy and hold where we just
Okay.
diversify it out and sit 5 or 10 years. No, we're actively adjusting depending on what the markets are doing all the time.
Well, and I think that's very important, because I
Critical.
think that people, unlike you go into a bank, just per se, and you're treated like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with your money, you want to know specifically what's being done with it. I mean, you want answers directly on you don't want the standard answer that comes with everybody that deposits this amount of money or that deposits this amount. So 5 people could come to you with $100 grand, and you're going to do 5 different things or give them different options on each one of those portfolios as you start to build it. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, and what we're really doing is we're adjusting it to their risk level. In other words, people who have been successful in investing have been able to stay invested over the long term. And those people who have been able to stay invested over the long term, it's usually because they're invested according to a risk level that they can live with. So in other words, when the markets start to fluctuate and go up and down, if they're comfortable with the risk level that they're at, they'll stay invested. If they're not, then they'll bail out.
Okay.
And so the classic thing is the market tanks, investors are invested too aggressively for their risk level, and they bail out. Well, no matter how good your investment returns are, if you're not invested for the long term, you're not going to get those returns.
Okay, you're not going to get the return. So you
Yeah.
have to be willing
You
to
have
take
to-
that $100,000 and just sit on it and let it work and let
Right.
it work
Nerves
for
and
you.
steel would be a big help.
As I say, so Superman is definitely necessary.
Yeah.
Dave, tell us how people can get a hold of you and find out more about Paragon. Do you have a website that they can go to?
Yeah, the easiest
Okay.
way is our website is www.paragonwealth.com.
Okay.
And paragonwealth.com. Actually, if you Google wealth management, will come up on the first page.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, you come highly recommended. Tim has spoken very highly of you. So we appreciate you being here this morning. Lots of great information. I think there's a lot of fear out there. And as I mentioned, we joke in our family that we're just sticking our money underneath mattresses right now, and we'll just wait. Not a great place for it to be. So,
Yeah.
So it lets people know that you can invest and there's still opportunities to make money.
Definitely.
So,
Well, thanks for
sounds
inviting
great.
me here today.
Well, thanks for being here. We
Thanks for
appreciate
coming.
it.